Hello and welcome everyone to our second Lialusin circle. We are celebrating the full moons in 2025 by honoring the indigenous Armenian goddesses. And tonight we are going to be focusing on Nané. So without further ado, I will get us started. Our program tonight starts with some prayers and invocations. We'll be calling in elemental guardians, honoring the ancestors, and saying a little prayer of awakening to the goddesses. And then I'll talk a little bit about the origins of Nané and her character. And then I'm going to hand the mic over to Haley, who's going to talk to us about protective amulets and folk magic. Then we'll have a little time for sharing and reflection, and we'll dive back in to look at some then and now Nané's character and practices that you can bring into your own modern spiritual practice. And then we'll have a little closing prayer and end our recording. Barav Dzez, spirits of the east, guardians of air, Tsovinar's thunder, wind, song, and breath, we call and welcome you to our circle tonight. Barav Dzez, spirits of the south, guardians of fire, the sacred sun, the hearth and spark of life, we call and welcome you to our circle tonight. Barav Dzez, spirits of the west, guardians of water, Lake Savan, the inland seas, rivers, and blood, we call and welcome you to our circle tonight. Barav Dzez, spirits of the north, guardians of earth, Mount Ararat, the Caucasus, stone and bone, we call and welcome you to our circle tonight. With respect and honor, blessed spirits of the land, bear witness and guard us as we awaken our ancestral wisdom and the timeless magic of our sacred goddesses. So with each of our circles, we will have a little honoring and offering to our ancestors. So if you haven't done so yet, take a moment to prepare your space. Light your candle for the goddesses and pour a little fresh water for your ancestors to welcome them into the circle. Barav Dzez, ancestors and beloved dead, tonight I lift your names to the heavens with the full moon as our witness. And now we'll just have a moment of my silence so that everyone can speak on their own end the names of their ancestors. And then we will close that prayer. May the goddesses guide us to heal our traumas and mend our hearts, to witness our joys and join in our laughter, blessing us as we weave a new tapestry of sacred magical community. Prayer of Awakening. O beautiful, immortal goddesses of Armenia, we call to you, ancestors of blood, ancestors of spirit. We gather under this full moon, your scattered children, yearning to return, to reclaim the lineage of our magic. Once you flourished in our hearts and in the land, long since eclipsed by war, conquest, and patriarchy, let us lift the veil of Christianity that has fallen so heavily and return you to the bright light of the sacred sun. With love and honor, we respect our family's faith, and with reverence, seek to unearth its tender roots. Walking side by side on these paths of love and spirit, may we each find the divine in her myriad faces. O beautiful and immortal goddesses of Armenia, rise up from the soil, the seas, and the sands of time. Return to us, radiant, whole, and exalted in love. May your magic ignite in the flaming of the rose. Nané, goddess of war and wisdom. From mother to warrior. How Nané came to be an integral goddess in the Armenian pantheon is tricky to tease out. Most scholars believe she found her way to the highlands by way of Mesopotamia as an aspect of the ubiquitous Sumerian goddess Inanna. In the 3rd millennium BCE, the Mesopotamian goddess Nanaya, who is thought to have been an aspect of Inanna and Ishtar, was a goddess of erotic love, motherhood, fertility, sacred kingship, and war. Nanaya's worship spread far and wide over the centuries, evolving and syncretizing with many different goddesses of foreign lands. Koronatsi reports that Tigrans the Great, 1st century BCE, brought a statue of Nané and Anahit from lands in the west and established her cult in Armenia. But it's also possible that both goddesses were already present in some indigenous forms, as well as conflated to some degree with each other. Their respective temples at Thiel and Erez were in close proximity to each other, and it seems that they originally shared many of the same qualities and cult practices. In Armenia, which was heavily influenced by both the Greek and Persian Zoroastrian religions, Nané became associated with the wise and warlike Greek Athena, and Anahit took on the qualities of Greek Artemis and the Persian Anahita. Both Nané and Anahit were said to be daughters of the supreme creator god Aramaz. It is interesting that both sisters were associated with virgin goddesses of the Greek pantheon. This may have something to do with the fact that neither Armenian goddess was known to be paired with a god's spouse, hence they remained, quote, virgins and sovereign unto themselves. Anunitum. Anunitum was another Mesopotamian goddess of warfare. She was initially thought to be an epithet of the Akkadian Ishtar, but came to be known as a distinct figure, the tutelary goddess of the cities of Akkad and Sipar Amenum. It is presumed that Anunitum's name derived from the root NN, which means warlike. It can be translated as skirmisher or the martial one. While the name Nané is not specifically linked to Anunitum, it is interesting that the NN sound in Ishtar's epithet indicate her in her warrior aspect, and that root traveled with Nana or Nanaya into Armenia as Nané, the warrior goddess. And this is a very famous Akkadian seal, which shows the goddess Ishtar theoretically in her epithet of Anunitum, the warrior goddess. And that is a 3rd millennium BCE, very long time ago. From warrior to wise grandmother. Nané was said to be clothed in armor and carrying a shield and spear ready for battle. Her prowess as a warrior and sage is attested by the tradition in ancient Armenia for kings to meet with the eldest woman in the royal family to counsel before going to war, as it was believed she was the epitome of wisdom and experience. Over so many centuries of brutal war and conquest, it's no surprise that Nané, as protectress, warrior, and wise counselor, has retained her legacy even in modern Armenian culture. Nané was a goddess of such importance that her name is still given to Armenian girls and is a nickname for grandmother, or wisest elder female of the family. This photo, you probably have seen it. It's a very famous photo. She's not named, but this is a 106-year-old Armenian woman who is protecting her home in the Dag village with an AKM rifle. And this was taken in 1990 by a United Nations photographer. And this woman probably lived through 2 massacres, at least the Hamidian massacres and the genocide, as well as the Sovietization of Armenia. And at this point is protecting her home during the conflicts over Nakhchivan. So she is, I feel, a perfect representation of a modern Nané. And now I'm going to switch us over to Haley so we can learn about some Armenian folk magic. Okay, Haley, take it away. And you'll need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, it wasn't letting me switch back and forth. Are you... I just want to confirm you guys are able to see the presentation? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can
Okay.
see the presentation.
Okay. So a lot of Armenian folk magic is mostly based in Christianity, so that is the main aspects that we have at the moment. And so that's what I'm mostly going off of, but I'm mostly teaching about the more common versions that are relatively accessible to most people. So there are various forms of protective amulets. The main forms I'm going to cover are prayers and prayer scrolls, various uses of metal amulets, and the Dagan. I've never been able to pronounce it correctly. The main focus of these types of amulets was to prevent against the evil eye and, evil spirits, anything that had harmful intentions. And there was often a form of, including forms of prayers. So prayer scrolls can range from a couple of inches to 30 feet long. And depending on the financial background of a family, it could be a scroll that has been passed down, or it could be one that is custom made. If people were lower income, they might just make them at home. But those who are wealthier would call upon artisans to make entire art pieces along with the prayers. Some were also mass made, where you just kind of write your name into it. So there were various ways that this was done. And they would often be carried on a person. You can also probably hang them in your home to a certain degree, but they were mostly hung on a person. And included things such as Bible verses, psalms, prayers that have just been passed down in the family, prayers from the Book of Narek, specific saint prayers, and so on and so forth. This is one that is at several at the Armenian Museum of America. As you can see, there is art pieces in them. So these were ones that were probably more attached to wealthier families, or were ones that had been made a very long time ago and passed down. And as you can see, like they're very intricate and very long, and would be carried like this kind of got cut off, but carried in like a sachet like this on a person. This was very common practice, and this in Armenian culture and somewhat and also in Ethiopian, but this is actually not a common practice in most places. Even though there are a lot of different Christian cultures, this specific type of practice was really not that common, surprisingly. The next one is the Dagan. I'm never gonna say that correctly. They are wooden charms that they have to be made of wood. Some people will make them out of different materials, but they're not meant to actually be used seriously. And they are sometimes put on livestock, either upon their head, kind of covering parts of their eyes. Um, one researcher or one person talked about how it's to help sheep like look down so they don't like walk off of cliffs or something like that because they have a habit of doing that. And to also protect cattle from the evil eye because the death of livestock is one of the biggest fears when it comes to the evil eye. It would also be hung in kitchens a lot and around doorways and even worn as necklaces. Some makers claim they have to only feel happy emotions. They cannot feel any negative emotions while making one. Otherwise, it kind of damages it. Um, and they are usually in a similar shape as a form of crescent moon. But some people kind of just carve them into other different household items as well. But some actually have the faces of angels on them, which is a more focus on Christian protection, having an angel protect you in your home or your cattle or livestock. Um, and ironically, like if it has any form of damage, like if it breaks in any way, it's considered useless and it can no longer be utilized, which is pretty interesting. These are some examples. As you can see, they come in plenty of different shapes. This is the face of an angel. This is, I have two of them actually in my home. One that's more ironically in the shape of an egg, and then one that looks like this. And as you can see, they could put, like, this one might have probably been used for cattle. And these are, like, all the various different shapes, as you can see. Like, there's a lot, this was a really big art form that was really common. And you can find these kind of for sale everywhere in Armenia, sometimes in gift shops, and sometimes you can see carvers like on the street even selling them. So it's very interesting, it's very popular. And the last thing I'm going to cover is the use of metal in general, which in almost everywhere around the world, the use of iron as a protective force is really common. If you know a little bit of Celtic folklore, the iron keeps the fae away. It's kind of a similar case here. The use of the horseshoe is very common. And it's actually become more common in more recent years and related to modern necklaces. But blacksmiths would actually like had specific days that they would make necklaces or melt metal to use throughout the year. On New Year's, it was seen as a holy day that these were the days. This is the day that you'd make protective items. Um, the metal in general is protective, but it's seen as like extra special if something of the metal is done on that day. Um, and something that's become more of a trend in the last few years is having things like the Our Father put onto metal necklaces and worn around, similar to a prayer scroll. It's kind of like a modern rendition of it, which is relatively interesting. Another thing is putting nails into the doorways. That's been used to either keep evil out. Also, if evil does get into your house, it curses them when they leave. Um, so there are various rituals relating to that. And the horseshoe, in Armenian culture, it's used upwards. In some cultures, it's used downwards. But in Armenian culture, it's used upwards. Um, and even some people would, I think particularly women, would actually wear like metal, like safety pins as a form of keeping the evil eye and the devil away. So that is a relatively interesting thing that continued on for a very long time. And I included two different prayers if you guys are interested. I just added this one right before the meeting. So these necessarily wouldn't have been used on prayer scrolls, but it's kind of to give you an idea of what maybe family prayers or folk prayers would look like, because I think a lot of us know the Our Father and the typical church prayers. Book Narek, we can read. These come from a book of women's poetry, but also included some folk cures. So this was actually recorded by a professor in a different article. This is the one from the women's book, um, and it's about protecting you from nightmares and protecting anyone from coming into your home. And it's a house protection that you would say before you go to sleep. And this one is if you're walking alone. This is something you would say, like maybe you grab dirt and you say this prayer to keep yourself safe until you get home. These are like folk prayers are a lot shorter than what you would see on the prayer scroll, but a lot of time that's the point. So I wanted to kind of give you an idea that you don't need to have super elaborate prayers if you want to make something like a prayer scroll. You can have some things that are relatively simple.
Haley,
And
can you read these prayers for us?
Sure. I will admit I don't know necessarily what this is meant to mean. James R. Russell recorded it from an Armenian American woman. I don't know if it's something in Armenian. If anyone wants to clarify for me, that'd be great. And so this one is: the eye and cross be over my pillow, divine liturgy over my mouth. Behold, I have entered the true tomb. My soul and body are entrusted to thee. Crozier at the closed door. May a stone break the one entering at the door. That's supposed to say a rock. I'm sorry. A rock, the one entering at the skylight. It's actually somewhat of a curse upon anyone that tries to break into your home. Which I feel like, is a good thing to have. And the other one is you say, protect me, my God, from thieves. Let them turn aside and leave. Keep them far away. And you would take dirt and you put it in front of your path as you're walking home. So these are just a couple of folk prayers to kind of give you a little indication about that. And I will now pass it back to Devana.
Thank you so much, Haley. That was fantastic. I am so intrigued by that. And I wanted to mention as well the fact that if one of the dagdans gets damaged, that in traditional folk magics, like not necessarily just Armenian, but in folk magic in general, if a protective talisman breaks, it is believed that that talisman did its job for you. Therefore, it's not useful anymore. So it's not that it turns into garbage per se, but that it did its job and can't do it any further.
Yeah.
Can I go off on that? Has anyone else been raised with the evil eye doing the same thing too? Okay, so growing up, whenever my evil eye bracelets or necklaces would break, my mom would be like, okay, get rid of it, it's done. Because I would try to fix it because I liked it as jewelry. She goes, no, we're gonna get you a new one. It worked, it protected you. And sometimes a random vase or something would break in the home, and she would be like, oh, that guest, they brought in bad energy and the vase broke. So I think it goes beyond just
Yeah, it's a very common practice I know in certain European and West Asian practices. But it's in the sense of even if it hits something and has the slightest dent, it's kaput. And actually, the photo of the prayer scrolls, the guy from that video also covered Dagdans, and he talked about how he got given this one that's in the video because it was damaged, and the guy's like, I can't sell it, and the guy's like, oh, I don't want to use it, I just want it for my museum. So he was able to get it. I have one downstairs, but I forgot I have this one in my room, which is a relatively unique shape. So I thought I'd just kind of show it to you guys. The guy that sold it is no longer online, and I'm really upset because I would have linked him because he had a lot of them, and they're all gone. I don't know what happened, but so I thought I'd just show that to you guys.
That is really cool. Thank you for showing that, Haley. I'm gonna pause our recording just for a minute. Back to explore a little bit more of Nané's folklore and some modern practices that you can adapt or work into your own spiritual work. So Nané then and now, and some points of my own personal practice. Nané's temple at Thiel. The ancient temple of Nané was said to be located in the city of Thiel, across the River Gale from Anahit's famous temple at Erez. There's an interesting linguistic connection to the name of Thiel, or Thiel, giving a further clue to Nané's warrior character. Thiel is a Semitic loanword in Armenian, meaning hill. Tilu, frequently occurring in the ancient toponyms of the region. In Armenian sources, the word Thiel is used only for the hills made by Shamaram. The latter, Greek Semiramis, is one of the central ancient pre-Iranian mythological characters of the Armenians and other peoples of the region. One may presume that Nané figures as the heiress of Semiramis. It's interesting to note that according to Strabo, the city of Zila in Pontus was fortified on a mound of Semiramis with the temple of Anaitis, who is also revered by the Armenians. So there, Semiramis was the predecessor of the local figure of Anahit. So Semiramis, for anyone that doesn't know, was an ancient Assyrian queen who was renowned for her battle strategies and her victories in war all over the region. And she was also known to have built hundreds of monuments and cities, and there are so many place names all over Asia Minor, all over Anatolia, the Middle East, that are named after Semiramis or a root from her name. So just like another tie-in with Nané's sort of strategic battle warrior wise woman character. And that quote was from the State Pantheon of Greater Armenia, earliest sources by Armen Petrosian. So Nané in situ. This map is it's from an article that describes the 8 pagan temples of ancient Armenia. And here is the city of Thiel, where the red pin is. You can see it's very close to Erez, where Anahit's temple was. And just for reference, with the geography that we were looking at last month, Lake Sevan is right here to the east. So Thiel and Erez were significantly west of Lake Sevan, where we saw a lot of evidence of Tsovinar. And then you can see also Lake Van is down here to the southeast. And then here we have this amazing statue. This feminine personification of Armenia bears all the hallmarks of Nané, with sword and shield, standing guard over the capital city. The monument replaced a World War II memorial statue of Stalin, which was removed in 1962. The name of the statue is Mother Armenia by Ara Harutyunyan, and it was created in 1967. And this is located in Victory Park in Yerevan. So you can actually see, essentially see Nané as a monumental sculpture. And now for the magic. So, for Materia Magica and Nané, I associate her with the mineral carnelian. Carnelian is a semi-precious volcanic stone in the chalcedony family, presenting a color range from pale pink to a deep orange red, its color coming from iron oxide impurities in the mineral. Carnelian has been used as beads since the early Neolithic era and was widely used in ancient decorative arts, including signet rings, cylinder seals, intaglio gemstones, and carved Egyptian and Phoenician scarabs. Historically, it was associated with kings and royalty and was thought to bring protection, courage, and good fortune. It was also associated with the blood and the body due to its coloration, and so was also considered a stone of good health and vitality. Now this picture on the left is the remains of an incredible archaeological site. These beads and gold ornaments were unearthed in a Bronze Age grave at the Metzamor necropolis, and these date from the 2nd millennium BCE, approximately 1300 to 1200 BCE. So all of these beads were carved from carnelian. It's really quite exquisite. And the museum at Yerevan actually has a full necklace of carnelian beads and gold that I couldn't manage to get a good photo to include here, but you should definitely keep an eye out for that if you happen to get to some museums in Armenia. So Armenia is a volcanic region with an abundance of carnelian. Carnelian beads first appeared in the Kura Basin at the end of the Neolithic period. So that's literally 6 to 7,000 years BCE. But the most ancient pieces in Armenia date from the Bronze Age, and that is the end of the 4th millennium BCE. And here you can just see some of the places where carnelian beads and artifacts have been found in Armenia. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So yarrow, the herb yarrow. Yarrow is an incredible herb with a rich history of medicinal and magical uses. Traces of these flowers were found in a 60,000-year-old Neanderthal grave, illustrating its sacred lineage, and yarrow stalks were used in the original form of the I Ching divination system. The herb's most well-known medicinal quality is to heal wounds and stop bleeding. In the traditional medicine of Armenia, the plant is used to counter diseases of the upper respiratory tract and dysentery, and as a styptic to counter uterine bleeding. Its name, Achillea milfolium, is derived from the myth of Achilles, who was taught by the centaur Chiron to use the plant to treat battlefield wounds during the Trojan War. Hence, it became known as Herba militaris. Yarrow is magically associated with the blood and vitality, kind of like carnelian, and is believed to be a powerful protective herb, dispelling fear and bestowing courage on those who carry it. And now, the eagle. The eagle has long been an iconic symbol of Armenia, especially representing its royal houses and military campaigns. Eagle statues, along with lions, flanked the sculptural retinue of King Antiochus I of Commagene, whose monumental statuary atop Mount Nemrut immortalized the gods of his lineage, Armenian, Greek, and Persian. The eagle, representing power, strength, courage, freedom, and wisdom, featured on the coat of arms of the Armenian Artasiad and Arsacid dynasties. The golden eagle is the national bird of Armenia and is immortalized with the lion on the Republic of Armenia's coat of arms, which was adopted in 1992. It is also a symbol of Armenian nationalism, for better or worse, in the Eagle of Taron from the 1930s, which was believed to symbolize the spirit of independence, strength, and resilience of the Armenian people. Although we don't have specific historical or archaeological evidence connecting Nané with the eagle, It remains an enduring symbol of Armenia's history, national pride, and its royal founding dynasties. When paired with Nané's realm of war and wisdom, the eagle becomes a symbol of the power and majesty of nature, the ability to rise above conflict, and of one's own personal and bodily sovereignty. Today, as our rights are coming under fire like never before, let Nané's power swoop in like the eagle and fight against this injustice and social iniquity. Although we don't have a lot of clear historical or archaeological evidence connecting Nané with the eagle, we do see ancient images of Inanna or Nanaya with wings, and several modern Armenian artists also portray Nané as a winged goddess. The eagle was also featured on the coat of arms for Tigrans the Great, who was said to have brought her statue and established her cult in Armenia. Below is a coin of Tigrans the Great, circa 95 to 55 BCE, with the 8-pointed star flanked by 2 eagles. So, I have a double there in that second paragraph. In the Christian era, the powerful symbolism of the eagle was transferred to God the Father as a symbol of wise judgment and spiritual guardianship, and can be seen as a symbol of national and spiritual pride all over Armenia. So the figure on the left is an eagle from Svartnots Cathedral. The second photo is an eagle on a rock outcropping at the entrance to Yerevan. And the last one is a Kachkar featuring an eagle from Kansasar Church in Artsakh. Hopefully it still exists. And these are just a few modern representations of Nané. This one on the left is by Joseph Sarkisian, who is an active artist in the LA area. And then we have Nané by Datvig Kuyumjian. I hope I didn't butcher that too badly, but she's also done a series of Armenian goddess paintings that are really fantastic. And then the final piece here is titled Menua, King of Urartu receives bow and arrow from goddess Nané by Rubik Kocharian. He was a 20th century artist. He passed away, I think, about 10 years ago, but he also has a phenomenal volume of paintings centered on Armenian mythology and the gods and goddesses. Connecting with Nané. Consecrate your protective talismans, just like we've all been talking about some of those family heirlooms and those little protective heirlooms. If you have evil eye beads or talismans or dagdahans or prayer scrolls, dedicate them to the goddess by keeping them on her altar. You can also dedicate your social justice activism to Nané and ask for her help in righting the wrongs in your personal life as well as in the world at large. And then an experiment. Try bellomancy for divination. Bellomancy is an ancient practice of divining with arrows, best indicated for yes and no questions. Used very simply as a kind of compass, ask your question and toss the arrow into the air, away from your head, of course. If it lands with the arrowhead pointing towards you, the answer is yes. If it points away from you, the answer is no. If it points to the side once, phrase your question differently. If it points to the side again, save your question for another day. And I thought to include this form of divination because it was actually used quite frequently in the classical age by military leaders and politicians to strategize for their military campaigns. And then this wonderful image here is a portrayal of Nané as the Justice card in the Armenian Tarot by Pambak Games. And that is it for our educational portion of tonight's circle. So we'll just have this little sealing prayer, and then we'll come back to do a little more sharing and reflection. So, may the goddesses rise and the land be healed. May the ancestors preside as our magic is sealed. And with that, I thank you all so much for coming tonight and celebrating Nané in our circle. I hope you've learned a little and been inspired, and I really look forward to connecting with all of you again next month when we explore the goddess of love, Astgi.